social slime, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one lives countries, laugh to your face, fight and die, cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower class and social side, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. See their shit, force of air, fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one lives countries, lie to your face, fight and die, cause God forgives. Yeah, coming back around again.
Okay, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On, UCY.TV, best little network on the internet. It just doesn't stop here, you know. People think this silly little country of ours called Canada is this wonderful little socialist government that loves the people and is always there for the people in the best interest of the people. You know, we're the flagship of decency that the world aspires to be like. That's what the government would like the people to believe, and up to this point, they have pretty much believed it. But that's changing. Definitely changing. About bloody time, too. I read last night a gentleman I know, Enos Martin, who had the audacity, I guess, to put in a private prosecution claim against two OPP officers who were rearrested him after he'd already been arrested and processed and was home again, and cut up his wrists and ratcheted up his shoulders, and took that to court. And they brought in a prosecutor, high-level prosecutor from out of town, who threw it out. Now, this is how it operates. The police police the police. The legislature writes the Police Act, which is the legal jargon, is written by the other outfit that was given exclusivity by the legislature called the Law Society of Upper Canada, who basically are in control of writing all law. And they write the law for the Police Act and every other act. And these are exclusive groups outside the reach of the government that legislated them into existence. So the police police the police, the courts police the courts, and the lawyers police the lawyers. And that is a axis of evil, triple crown, whatever the hell you want to call it. But what it does each time that the police pull some nonsense, and that's why I want to thank Enos so much for going to all the effort he did to get the police into the court, or get the assault into the court, because the police are not going to arrest the police. The SIU we have here, which is an oversight body, it's supposed to be an independent oversight body, but they can they can't really do anything either. It's like an ombudsman or something, but they only investigate. They're only allowed to investigate, a death at the hands of the police or vicious bodily harm. I mean, where you have a limb missing or something, and burns to over a large percentage of your body caused by the police. So their scope that they can investigate extremely narrow, and rape by the police. So there's really nobody out there, holding the police to account. Certainly not the media. So again, Enos doing what he did, knowing that it was basically up for a failure, because you are allowed to bring a private prosecution, but once you have your meeting, you have two meetings, one with the justice and then another one which is a private meeting to determine whether or not that the charges will be brought forward. And then the third meeting is where the justice, or not the justice, but the Crown Attorney takes over your private prosecution, making it no longer a private prosecution. And then it's up to the Crown Attorney to determine whether or not he, her, feel it has merit to bring it forward. Is it in the public interest to bring these police officers who are charged with assault causing bodily harm? Is it in the public interest to bring this forward? And is there enough evidence for conviction? So in this case, he just said he didn't think there was enough evidence for conviction, even though they had the testimony from the doctors and the pictures of the damage to Enos and everything else. So they had all kinds of reasons to bring it forward, but arbitrarily, the Crown can come in and say, nah, I don't think so, and kick it out. So Enos, knowing that, he's already laid civil charges against the two police officers and took them to small claims court, and which is a $25,000 maximum. Once the determination was that it wasn't going to go forward as a criminal action, he went back and, after much argument, managed to get the small claims court of $25,000 per officer moved up to a higher court, and I put a number on of $500,000. So I got to give Enos credit for being so freaking tenacious, and that's what the rest of us have to do. People are being assaulted. Let me think. Right now, somewhere in this province, somebody's getting assaulted by a cop, pretty much guaranteed, and nothing happens. And that's got to stop. So, while in the one sense it was kind of a bad news, in the other sense it's very good news. And I was talking to Michael Schmidt, the milk farmer who's been harassed, and this is where all of this stuff started with Enos Martin. He just happened to be one of the people that showed up at Michael's after Michael put out a Facebook notice that they were being raided, and they showed up there. No pushing, no shoving, very little loud language. People milling around just saying, you're not taking anything off of this farm. People stood their ground and forced the ministries and the police to unload the truck that they had already loaded to remove stuff from Michael's, including computers and stuff. I think they left with the computers, but they were forced to unload the food because the people said, that's our food. You can't walk in here and steal our food. You can't do it. And peacefully forced the police and the agencies to unload the truck. After the fact, none of these people were charged at the farm. There was an afterthought. What are we going to do now? How are we going to keep harassing these people? So what they did was they laid charges of obstruction against Michael, Enos, and several other people. Didn't bother to take the summons to the particular people. No, they phoned up one of those charged and told him to come and get his ticket at the police station and tell the rest of the people that had been charged to come and pick up their summonses as well. So it's very, very bad the way they're handling this thing. And but I was concerned about the milk people. And I'll tell you why, because Michael has a really large following. People are looking up to Michael as this guy that won't lay down, and that's why he's getting beat up so much. But I don't think they really understood what they were dealing with until this thing with Enos in the court happened, and the fact that there was all kinds of evidence, witness statements from the doctors, and then just arbitrarily they throw it out. And I went over to Michael's Facebook, which is just Michael Schmidt, and just to see what was cooking. And they had put up, somebody had loaded up the news story about Enos's court case and the outcome of it. And so I thought, what are the people, Michael's people, who all they're interested in, they're talking about, legalizing the milk, and they're talking about, why is the government doing this? Why don't they, just let us have our damn milk and be done with it? So I was kind of interested to see what some of the people who normally wouldn't even think about these kind of things had to say about what happened in the courthouse with Enos. And so the first one is from a Barbara, and she says, fear of more repercussions out at the farm. John says there's no justice system left in Ontario. Courts even ignore the basic rights given by our Constitution. Well, all of that stuff's a fraud. Okay, the justice system is a complete fraud, always was a complete fraud, as is the Constitution. Complete fraud. So these people are starting to go scratch their head at least and go, what the hell's going on here? Amy says no more force was used necessary. The point here is that force was used to detain a man where there was no criminal claim to justify this. This is why the prosecutors send out policy enforcement to do things like they do to you, Michael. That's the level of protection that the Crown issues to its policy enforcers, so that when they do break the real law, they are protected. People in Ontario need to rise up, stand up, because we do have the power. And that's true. We do have the power, and we do got to stand up. David says, isn't it strange how the law works, or more likely doesn't work? Kirk writes, are we in a police state? Yes, you are in a police state. You've always been in a police state. Actually, what you're in is you're not like, you're living in place like what the Rockefellers used to do with the oil and the miners and stuff like that, okay? They would come in and shoot these people, and if they tried to stand up, shoot them, beat them up, and that's really where policing came from. It was protection for the corporations. That's what your police do. They protect the corporation. They're not your police, excuse me. They're corporate police. And they enforce corporate policy. And should you stand up to their corporate policy, well, they have ways of getting around it. So yes, we are in a police state. We've always been in a police state. Canada, the United States are corporations. And the state is, everybody takes an oath to the state. Okay? They don't take an oath to you. They take an oath to the state. They protect the state, which abuses you, which steals from you, steals your labor from you. Anyways, Robert, there's no such thing as justice left in this province or in the rest of Canada. I am one of the 5 charged with obstruction. It seems it is not possible for a fair or impartial hearing. You are guilty until proven innocent. Why hide behind this farce and pretend you have rights? Zelda Bothwell, who is Farmer George's wife, who they've been through hell and back. George spent 165 days, I believe, in jail, and they let him out without ever charging him or taking him to court. Trying to break people. George got out just before his 65th birthday. But Zelda writes, a doctor's report is not enough evidence, ? Photos, ? a visiting crown from out of the area can decide this just like boom? Yes, he can. Because it's written down in their rules and regulations of a private prosecution. Andrew says, nothing surprises me anymore. And Charlotte says, if you work for them, you're considered innocent, but if you are just a tax-paying citizen, you're guilty until you can't afford to plead innocent. And Amy, that visiting Crown prosecutor is shit-blocking the access to the administration of justice. And if the Crown is saying you're producing and distributing raw milk, then you just tell the judge that the cows are producing and distributing the raw milk. And since God created the animals of earth, we are just enjoying that product. And now here's Adrian, who's a little bit confused, and says, "Can you file an information and get things rolling along yourself?" Well, that's exactly what Enos did. He did file a information and brought it in as a private prosecution, and that's the same thing. And he did all his work, and they just came and threw it out. So Rudy says, "Same shit, another day." Peter J says, "Please state." Linda. And they wonder why we don't trust them, and they wonder why the cops do what they do. The ones who are going over that line know they will get away with it, and that's the whole point. It's a protection racket for the state. Jody says, "Yep, we acknowledge we don't hold cops accountable for assault. A sad, sad day indeed. Anyone who believes we have a justice system has never dealt with it. As our institutions fail us, we are left only with revolution as a choice." Claude says, "This is sickening." Paul says, "Total collusion." Justin says, "Using your registration live birth document with a case file Irwin Tory Toy Limited versus Quebec is the only documentation to use to identify your individual as everyone recognized by State Party Canada through the Canadian Charter. Use equity court versus their statute courts." And it goes on a bunch of stuff here. But anyways, the point is that these people here who, this is just some of the comments, the people here leaving these comments, these are people that just want to have their real food. That's all they want. Okay, and this has been going on like with Michael for over 20 years. That's how long it's taken for these people to really see what's going on. You know, they've protested and they've written and they've gone, you know, and to the Parliament buildings. They've done everything. They're thinking that there's somebody there that will be smart enough to understand that they're not out harming anyone. Okay, they own the farm, they own the cows, they own the milk that comes out of the cows. What's the big hoo-ha? Well, it's all about protecting corporations. It's all about these exclusive contracts because the Milk Marketing Board has exclusivity over the milk industry. The police have exclusivity over the force. The Law Society has exclusivity over the legal system, which they try to pass off as law, which it is not, as color and force of law. So the legalese boys, you know, they get into government. I mean, one thing that should be struck immediately is that no lawyer can run in an election. I mean, we all know the elections are completely phony anyways, but all you're doing is hiring a board of directors to look after the corporation. But regardless, no lawyer should have the ability to run in an election because the Law Society has exclusivity over writing law. So if the lawyers are in your government, and it's rife everywhere, then you've got the lawyers bringing forward bills and creating statutes, rules, regulations, and that. And then their boys over in the Law Society are writing all the legalese into the laws. So you run by lawyers. and you end up with the color of law, and the boys in the legislature, the lawyers who are elected, give the police exclusivity over force to protect the lawyers and protect the bankers and protect the other large corporations of which the province or the country does business with. A complete and total farce. And we all pay the price for it. And that's bloody unfortunate. And I'm going to try this out because, when I crack in rule of law, and I'm pretty happy about this. I was talking to Michael the other day, and he's been trying for years to get raw milk legalized. And I'm going to ask him, why do you want to get it legalized for? Now, if the government had been smart, they would have went ahead and legalized it. They could have put a stop to people consuming raw milk because they would have put in so many regulations and the cost would have been so high nobody could have operated under those conditions. But they just tried to use the strong arm method. And so, I was talking to Michael the other day after this thing with Enos in the court. I said, I still don't understand why you're trying to get it legalized. Okay? Because if they do legalize it, you're screwed. And he's past that now. He said he's done with it. He's absolutely done with it. And that's a good thing. Now we can try moving forward. The legal system is a complete and total fraud. It was began as a fraud and it continues as a fraud. It has nothing whatsoever to do with law. And I am going to try this out, I guess. Rule of law. And this is it says under Legal Dictionary, and this is under the Free Dictionary by Farlex. And they have dictionaries, medical dictionary, legal dictionary, financial dictionary, and so on and so forth. And this pops up under the heading of legal dictionary. And it starts right out. The rule of law is an ambiguous term that can mean different things in different contexts. In one context, the term means a rule according to law. No individual can be ordered by the government to pay civil damages or suffer criminal punishment except in strict accordance with well-established and clearly defined laws and procedures. In a second context, the term means rule under law. No branch of government is above the law, and no public official may act arbitrarily or unilaterally outside the law. And this is the important one here. In a third context, the term means rule according to a higher law. No written law may be enforced by government unless it conforms with certain unwritten universal principles of fairness, morality, and justice that transcend the human legal systems. In other words, the law of the Creator trumps the laws written by man, period. And we got to get there because what's been going on all their lives is nothing but a total and complete fraud. Now, I see I went to get a coffee this morning, and what did I see on the front page of the Toronto Star? First news thing I look at today. I just look at the headlines, and what do we? We see a couple things. Trudeau quietly agrees to share info on Canadians with the U.S. and the U.S. will reciprocate that. So we're going to have the U.S. And Ottawa spying on both their citizens, which is always nice. There's where did I see that? Just bear with me a second. I'll dig this out. Anyways, another case of let me get this back up here. Another case. It just seems like a daily deal anymore now. That where the heck did that go? Oh, here we go. Peel Regional Cops off the hook for bloody shooting spree. Review clearing police will remain secret after 19 shots killed one man and injured both a bystander and an officer. Susan Zekic was in her kitchen cutting a lime on March the 20th, 2015, when a police bullet went through a window and lodged in her side. A review clearing police for the shooting that injured Zeke and a police officer that killed a man will remain secret. Okay? So none of the police got charged. Nobody even got desk duty out of this, I don't think. And they just, put it in a file drawer, mark it secret, and drive on. And this is bad, man. This is really freaking bad. These are not, murders they're chasing around. These are not, bank robbers that are running around shooting up the streets. These aren't drug gangs that are running around shooting people up. According to this, there was a guy who had a knife. It's always a knife. It always seems to be a knife. That said this guy was advancing towards the police, and they blow off 19 shots. And they're good shots when they're shooting people in their houses. But again, it was nothing that couldn't have been dealt with. You have all these police and one guy with a little knife. I don't think this guy is too big a problem. You can walk up to the guy within 3 feet of him, easy, if he's got a little knife. Doesn't really matter what size of knife he got. You stay outside of 3 feet of him. Odds on him getting at you are pretty small. And, shoot him in the knee or something, right? Take him down. No need to kill anybody. No need for 19 shots. These people are off the deep end, but they know they're being protected. Okay, they know how far they can push things. They know they can run around shooting people, totally innocent people, and nothing happens. Now, on the other side, if you go over to the milk farm, the people who were not charged at the scene, it was an afterthought to send out 5 or 6 charges of obstructing a agent or an officer or whatever it was. Michael and them have been dragged in and out of court over this, can't get disclosure. Michael on this milk thing, I was talking to him, and he wanted some information, so he was going to have to go through the Freedom of Information or whatever to get some information from York Region, who keeps giving him a hard time. And they said they could get him the information if he would be so kind as to send them $30,000. This is your justice system. So the more this goes over the top, the more people are not being able to ignore what's going on anymore. So in that sense, it's a very, very good thing what's going on. Now, I ran into this thing last night, and I don't know. Oh, let me look this up first, anyways. So when I was talking about rule of law, there, that transcends the human legal. It transcends is to escape inclusion in, lie beyond the scope of, transcend, surpass, and directly from the Latin, climb over or beyond, surmount, overstep, meaning by surpassing, outdo, excel, surmount, move beyond, from the early 1500s. And that's what we got to do. Okay, we have got to climb up over top of this freaking legal system. And the legal system is a system of false law written by men specifically to enslave everyone. Every single legal statute, rule, regulation that has ever been put into place has caused man harm. Okay, I haven't been able to find one that didn't cause them harm. And that is either by taking away your natural God-given rights, or weakening them, or taking your labor through fines, registration fees, all of this kind of stuff. So the legal system is simply a corporate system to enslave, and it's against the law to enslave anyone, and therefore the legal system, except for the force. You see, if you take the force away, you got the color of law, which is not law, and force of law. Well, if you take away the force and you go through all the statute, rules, and regulations, without the force, you would find that very few people would adhere to these things because they're nonsensical for the most part, and the whole legal system would just implode. The only thing holding the legal system together is the force. That's it. And so you have an army, basically, dressed up in, people call them clown suits because it's an act. It's the circus. And, they're there to protect the lawyers and the judges and the bankers and those industries that have exclusivity. And that has to change. And it will change. Anyways, I found this kind of an interesting thing. And I don't even know if this is correct. Guy by the name of Fred Rodell. And it says here that Fred Rodell lived from March the 1st, 1907 to June 4th, 1980. It says he was an American law professor, most famous for his critiques of the U.S. legal profession, a professor at Yale Law School for more than 40 years. Rodell was described in 1980 as the bad boy of American legal academia by Charles Allen Wright. Goodbye to Fred Rodell, 89, Yale, LJ 1455, quoted in the Pitt Law School website. He was one of the leading proponents of the legal realism approach and rallied against overly abstract and theoretical legal arguments. He was a harsh critic of the legal profession, which he described as a high-class racket. In his 36th Virginia Law Review article, Goodbye to Law Reviews, quoted on the University of Denver website, Rodell famously remarked, there are two things wrong with almost all legal writing. One is its style, the other is its content. That, I think, about covers the ground. Rodell himself never became a member of the bar, later explaining that by the time I got through law school, I had decided that I never wanted to practice law, and I never have. Rodell studied under Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas at Yale. They carried on a lifelong correspondence, a substantial portion of which is archived at Rodell's alma mater, Haverford College, class 1926. They also awarded him an honorary degree in 1973, the year he retired from Yale. Now, that's about all I see on this guy. And I see, okay, there's a bibliography, so he must have wrote the damn thing. It says, woe unto you lawyers. Now, this is pretty good stuff. I mean, he really has at the law, or the legal system. I mean, he really goes at it. So I was, where is the PDF on that? I'm going to put this, is this the right one here? I'm going to put this in the chat. Oh, it's not the right one. Where did it go? Okay, here it is. Now, I'd never heard of this guy before, but I do know that legal is not law. That I do know. Okay, legal is most definitely not law, and it's most definitely not honest. I've had these discussions with the Attorney General's office. I've had these discussions with Law Society of Upper Canada. Legal is not law. Period. And at the beginning here, he just, woe unto you lawyers, a lusty-gusty attack on the law. in quotes, as a curious, antiquated institution which through outworn procedures, technical jargon, and queer mummery enables a group of medicine men to dominate our social and political lives and our business to their own gain. And that's absolutely true. So it says here, Fred Riddell, professor of law at Yale University, written in 1939. Woe unto you lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in ye hindered. Okay, and that's from Luke 11:52. So I was listening. I'm going to put this in the chat. And I also found, and I've been listening to it a bit today, and where did we go here? Here we are. It's quite interesting stuff because it's, I have to go back now and go back and find this thing again. Where did it get to? Okay. Now I think right at the beginning here, let's lay down the law as a preface. No lawyer will like this book. It isn't written for lawyers. It is written for the average man, and it is purpose to try to plant in his head, at least, a seed of skepticism about the whole legal profession, its works, and its ways. In case anyone should be interested, I got my own skepticism early. Before I ever studied law, I used to argue occasionally with lawyers, a foolish thing to do at any time. When as frequently happened, they couldn't explain their legal points, so that they made any sense to me. I brashly began to suspect that maybe they didn't make any sense at all. But I couldn't know. One of the reasons I went to law school was to try to find out. At law school, I was lucky. 10 of the men under me whom I took courses were sufficiently skeptical and common-sensible about the branches of law they were teaching, so that unwittingly, of course, they served together to fortify my hunch about the phoniness of the whole legal process. In a sense, they are the intellectual godfathers of this book, and though all of them would doubtless strenuously disown their godchild, I think I owe it to them to name them, listed alphabetically. They are Thurman Arnold, now Assistant Attorney General of the United States, Charles E. Clark, Judge of the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, William O. Douglas, Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Felix Frankfurter, Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Leon Green, Dean of Northwestern University Law School, Walter Hamilton, Professor of Law at Yale, Harold Lasky, Professor of Political Science at the London School of Economics, Richard Joyce Smith, now practicing attorney in New York, and Wesley Sturgis, now director of the Distilled Spirits Institute, and the late Lee Tulin. I was going to do the very beginning of this, something else, but by the time I got through law school, I had decided I never wanted to practice law. I never have. I'm not a member of any bar. If anyone should want, not unreasonably, to know what on earth I'm doing or trying to do teaching law, he may find a hint of the answer toward the end of chapter 9. When I was mulling over the motions of writing the book, I outlined my ideas about the book and about the law to a lawyer who is not only able but also extremely frank and perceptive about his profession. Sure, he said, but why give the show away? That clinched it. And that's what it is. It's a show. And we need to understand that. I'll just go through a little bit more of this. Modern medicine men, the law is a sort of hocus-pocus science, Charles Macklin. In tribal times, there were medicine men. In the Middle Ages, there were priests. Today, there are the lawyers. For every age, a group of bright boys learned in their trade and jealous of their learning, who blend technical competence with plain and fancy hocus-pocus to make themselves masters of their fellow men. For every age, a pseudo-intellectual autocracy guarding the tricks of its trade from the uninitiated and running after its own pattern, the civilization of its day. It is lawyers who run our civilization for us, our governments, our business, our private lives. Most legislators are lawyers. They make our laws. Most presidents, governors, commissioners, along with their advisors and brain trusts, are lawyers. They administer our laws. All judges are lawyers. They interpret and enforce our laws. There is no separation of powers where the lawyers are concerned. There is only a concentration of all government power in the lawyers. As a schoolboy put it, ours is a government of lawyers, not of men. It is not the businessman, no matter how big, who run our economic world. Again, it is the lawyers who advise and direct every time a company is formed, every time a bond or a share of stock is issued, almost every time material is to be bought or goods to be sold, every time a deal is made. The whole elaborate structure of the industry and finance is a lawyer-made house. We all live in it, but the lawyers run it. In our private lives, we cannot buy a home or rent an apartment. We cannot get married or try to get divorced. We cannot die or leave our property to our children without calling on the lawyers to guide us incidentally through a maze of confusing gestures and formalities that the lawyers have created. Objection may be raised immediately that there is nothing strange or wrong about this. If we did not carry on our government and business and private activities, of course, with reasoned rules of some sort, we would have chaos or else a reversion to brute force as an arbiter of men's affairs. True, but beside this point, the point is that it is the lawyers who make our rules and a whole civilization that follows them and disregards them at its peril. Yet the tremendous majority of men who make up the civilization are not lawyers, pay little heed to how and why the rules are made. They do not ask, they scarcely seem to care which rules are good and which rules are bad, which are help and which are nuisance, which are useful to society and which are useful only to the lawyers. They shut their eyes and leave to the lawyers the running of a large part of their lives. All of the specialized skills abroad in the world today, the average man knows least about the one that affects him the most, about the one thing that lawyers call the law. A man who will discourse at length about the latest cure for streptococcus infection, I can't say a word, or describe in detail his allergic symptoms cannot begin to tell you what happened to him legally. And plenty did when he got married. A man who would not dream of buying a car without an intricate and illustrated description of its mechanical workings will sign a lease without knowing what more than 4 of its 44 clauses mean and why they are there. A man who will not hesitate to disagree or criticize with a trained economist or an expert in any one of a dozen fields of learning will follow unquestioning and meek whatever advice his lawyer gives him. Normal human skepticism and curiosity seem to vanish entirely whenever a layman encounters the law. There are several reasons for this mass submission. One is the average man's fear of the unknown and of the police. The law combines the threat of both. A non-lawyer confronted by the law is like a child faced by a pitch-dark room. Merciless judges lurk there, ready to jump out at him. Ignorance of the law is no defense. Cowed and perforce trusting, he takes his lawyer's hand, not knowing what false step he might make unguided, nor what punishment might lie in wait for him. He does not dare display either skepticism or disrespect when he feels that the solemn voice of the lawyer telling him what he must or may not do is backed up by the mighty and mysterious forces of law and order from the Supreme Court on down to the cop on the corner. Then, too, every lawyer is just about the same as every other lawyer. At least he has the same thing to sell. Even though it comes in slightly different models and varying prices, the thing he has to sell is the law. And it is useless to run from one lawyer to another in the hope of finding someone better or something different or something that makes more common sense, as it would be useless to run from one Ford dealer to another if there are no Chevys or Plymouths or even bicycles on the market. There is no brand competition or product competition in lawyers' trade. The customer has to take the law or nothing. And if the customer should want to know a little more about what he's buying in direct fees or indirect fees or taxes, the lawyer need have no fear of losing business or someone else if they just plain refuse to tell. Yet lawyers can often do often talk about their product without telling anything about it at all. and that fact involves one of the chief reasons for the non-lawyer's persistent ignorance about it. Briefly, the law is carried on in a foreign language. Not that it deals, as do medicine and mechanical engineering, with physical phenomena and instruments which need special words to describe them simply because there are no other words. On the contrary, law deals with almost exclusively with the ordinary facts and occurrences of everyday business and government and living. But it deals with them in a jargon which completely baffles and befoozles the ordinary literate man, who has no legal training to serve him as a trot. Now, when we were in court there a year or so ago, I did ask the judge for an interpreter. And, he said, well, you sound like you speak English pretty good. And I said, but this ain't English. Legalese is not something that one versed in English will understand. So, might as well be Portuguese. So we need an interpreter. Of course, we didn't get one. Some of the language of the law is built out of Latin or French words or out of Old English words, which, but for the law, would long ago have fallen into disuse. A common street brawl means nothing to a lawyer until it has been translated into a felony, a misdemeanor, or a tort. And any of those words, when used by a lawyer, may mean nothing more than a common street brawl. Much of the language of the law is built out of perfectly respectable English words which have been given a queer and different and exclusively legal meaning. When a lawyer speaks, for instance, of consideration, he is definitely not referring to kindness. All of the language of law is such, as Mr. Dooley once put it, that a statue which reads like a stone wall to the layman becomes for the corporation lawyer a triumphant arch. It is, in short, a language that nobody but a lawyer understands or could understand if we were to take the lawyer's word for it. So anyways, this goes on, and it is bloody interesting. And the beginning of this thing is really about a guy who had some questions about the legal system, wanted to know some more, and went and studied law. And then when he came out the other end of it, decided that he would never be a lawyer because of the dirtiness of the business, the deceptions in the business, the trickery in the business, the enslavement of the business. And it kind of reminds me of, and I hope he's around today. I'm going to go check right now and see if he's online, which he's not. Damn it. Maybe he'll come on yet. Alex, he's been on here a couple times before, and he 29-year-old guy working in a warehouse in Brampton, Ontario, who went through journalism. I think he got his journalism degree, and not unlike Riddell here, when he come out the other end, Alex decided he couldn't be a journalist in the mainstream media because of the way it operates. It's a deception. It's trickery. It's wordsmithing to deceive. And he decided he couldn't do that. And so that's why he's working in a warehouse. So very, for 29 years old, this guy has a lot of deep thought. And I'm hoping that he shows up today because I would like to talk to him further about some of the stuff we were talking about offline. Anyways, this particular situation here of Wawandi lawyers is quite good. But I found also, for those who don't like to read, we have, I think it's 8 parts. So if I can find part 1, part 8, one of your lawyers, part 1. I'll put this in as well, and this is a reading of the book. So for those who don't like to read, you can listen to it, and I highly recommend it. And we have to get the lawyers out of here, because we are run by the lawyers. And the lawyers do not have your best interest at heart, not by a long shot. But the idea that the lawyers are allowed to run in an election, and that the lawyers are allowed to be in our parliaments and senates and congresses and all of this stuff is absolutely ridiculous. We vote them in, and then they turn around and they write the law for us. And they're an exclusive club, the bar. They have nothing to do with anybody else, and they control us. And you can't have all of this funny money running around, and you can't have all of these Freddie Macs and all of these Wall Street crashes and that unless they're orchestrated with the legal lingo of the lawyers. So they're all working together. Somebody wants to put a pipeline through your house or something, they just write up some rules and regulations and laws, and and if you protest, then they bring in the force of the law, which is the police, to protect the corporate interests. Now, why do you think your food is? Why do you think you get all this poison food and fluoride in your waters and that? Where the hell? How could that actually be implemented? Well, through the legal system, and so they run our lives. They are the Politico, they are the law, and we have been getting beat around by them too long. So, anyways, this is a link to for those who don't wish to read, and it plays out pretty good here. It's just a reading of the book, and I think that's part one of it. Yeah, it is. So I think there's 8 parts to it. So you're probably looking at, maybe 10 hours. I don't know. I don't know why it's so long, because the book's only like 160 pages or something. But I found this pretty. It's interesting. This guy does a pretty good reading of it, and I highly recommend that people take the time to go through that. Now, at the bottom end of that book, we have, where'd I get to? Yeah. Bottom end of that book, we have, I think, some pretty interesting stuff at the end of it. Yeah, it's only 160 pages, so you can listen to it for 10 hours, or you can just read it. Pretty quick. Let's see, we're going to start that. Let's see where we will run here. Finally, the lawyers would argue that, this is at the bottom of the book, would argue that if the law were scrapped and it became generally known that fallible man rather than infallible and impersonal abstract principles were dictating decisions with other men, which other men had to obey, then all respect for law and order would vanish, and revolution or anarchy or both would ensue. But in this argument, a typical magician's argument, in its conjuring up of frightful imagery, hobgoblins, is displayed a strange and contemptuous mistrust of the civilized tendencies of the nation. It implies that the whole structure of a society would automatically go to pieces if it were put on a practical rather than a mystical basis, an unwarranted assumption at best. Moreover, in this argument lies the crux of the whole fraud of the law. And it is a fraud. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The legal system is a fraud. And I've heard it before, when they had these, when they had the free man movement going and all this kind of stuff, that the big scare was that, well, if we didn't have law, everything would go to hell in a handbasket in about an hour and a half. And of course, that's not true. Not true at all. But it's fear-mongering to protect their interest. not the interests of your average man or woman, but the interests of the lawyers, and control of your life, and control of your finances, and control of your death. I mean, it's ridiculous. For the average man's respect, such as it is for our present system of law, and his consequent willingness to let his life be run in mysterious fashion by the lawyers, are indeed founded on the carefully nurtured legend of that legal principles are just about infallible, and that they produce in the judge's hands something very close to certain justice. Which, to sum it all up in 4 words, they aren't and they don't. It is a blind respect born not of understanding but of fear. And the fear is built on ignorance. If only the average man could be led to see and know the cold truth about the lawyers and their law, with the ignorance would go the fear, with the fear would go the respect. Then indeed, and doubtless in orderly fashion too, it would be, woe unto you lawyers. And that's pretty good stuff. It really truly is. And we got to get out of this fear nonsense. Fear is a very powerful situation. Fear makes young men go to corporate wars. The fear that this enemy is going to attack. It's all fear. It's fear. That's what runs our lives. You don't want to get in trouble. Nobody wants to get in trouble. But they're writing statutes and rules and regulations every day and piling one on top of the other, which are designed to get you in trouble, if not today, tomorrow. Or the next day. This idea, well, if you didn't do anything wrong, you wouldn't be dragged into court. This willful ignorance, as George Carlin would call it. Willfully ignorant. Not to see what's going on. To always turn a blind eye. To live in constant fear that, if you don't do anything wrong, that you won't get into some sort of trouble. You were born into trouble. Okay, they plagiarized your name shortly after your birth and turned you into a freaking trading certificate, basically. So, there's no need to be fearful of these guys. There is a necessity, though, to get rid of these guys. They're like a plague upon the world. And we need to get rid of them. Plain and simple. So, that's that. Oh, let me see if I can dig this one out now. Hope I didn't lose it. I was listening to a young girl. Now, they say, that like our preamble to our charter up here north in Canada states very specifically that it is founded upon the principles and supremacy of God and the rule of law. And the supremacy of God is the one that transcends human legal system or what they put down in the books. So, but I hope I can find this. I was listening to this before, and I find this very, very interesting because there was somebody, I think it was one of the founding fathers or something of America that said that, even if there wasn't a God, we need to invent one. There has to be something above us, or we're going to end up where we are now, basically. Okay? So whether you believe in a creator or not, okay, it's important. Now, this a girl called Cobra Dove has done I think some pretty good work, and I think people would get a lot out of her work. And she does what I've always done too, and she uses etymology a lot. She's seemingly very knowledgeable on the Bible. The only thing that bothers me is that sometimes she uses the word human, but we let her go on that. But she seems to have a good handle on the Bible, and she seems to understand how to use the old dictionaries and in particular etymology and a few other things to tie things together so that people get a better idea of what it is they're looking at. Now she has you go to her website or whatever, but this particular she does. I think I'm not sure if she does one woe onto the lawyers or not, but this is how I ended up at and these are fairly recent videos. This one is from December 2015, so it's not very old at all, and it's called "Who Are the Fallen Angels?" Fornicators, lawmakers, Congress, elites, revelation, and law. And she does a remarkable job of explaining some of these things. Now she's been at this for several years now, and she really, I think she's worth giving a listen to, if not for any other reason than just to maybe perk your interest on some of the things that she has to say. And she does a very, very good job of it. So I'm going to stick that also in the chat. And I think it's all about getting down to the core all the time, right? And getting away from all the noise. Nothing that happens in politics is important to you. Nothing. Okay, so don't even go there. Just shut that crap right out of your mind. Okay, there is nobody that you can vote for. You can't vote anyways, right? You can't vote. The only thing the state recognizes is the fiction. They don't recognize you. They created the fiction because the whole thing's a big play. It's an act. So you can't vote because you can't register to vote. Okay, you register. The fiction can't register itself because it's a fiction. But the state only recognizes the fiction. You're the agent for the fiction. So when you register the fiction. You don't register to vote. You register the fiction to vote. So you can't vote. So just let this whole voting crap go. Forget about it. It's a waste of your effort. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your mental capacity. Let it go. I mean, all you got to do is look back. I mean, if you're only even 30 years old, you've been through enough elections, for crying out loud. You ought to know by now. You've been hearing people say it for years. Doesn't matter who we vote in, we get the same garbage. Well, exactly. So don't vote. Because you can't anyways. By voting, you are proving to them that you still don't get it. That's all you're proving when you vote, is that you don't get the game. So don't vote and show them you do get the game. Okay? You want the lowest turnout in history. Is what you want. And then we're going to have to clean house. Okay? Why do you think they're bringing in all the immigrants? Okay? Why do you think they're doing that? Because they like immigrants? I mean, they bombed the homelands of these immigrants. Okay? Destroyed their homelands. And then, good cop, bad cop. This part of our administration bombed the snot out. This part of the administration is holding out a hand for you to help you. Why are they bringing them in here? Okay, to destroy what's left of our nations. Okay, which basically are European nations. So, we hear stories about, the immigrants don't even need ID to vote. The idea is to overcome the nation. So, this is what they're doing, and it doesn't matter how you vote. The wave is coming that it will be, all of what is being implemented now is good for anything that can be used to destroy the nation. So, voting is to say, we want you to destroy our nation. Not real bright, so don't do that. Spend your time talking to your neighbors. I'm looking forward to the day, when we just, give these people an option, right? Get out of our land, get off our land, or go to prison, or we'll put you in the stocks in the town squares, and we'll raise money by selling rotten tomatoes to the passers-by, and they can fire them at these politicians and lawyers and so on and so forth. We have to clean house. I mean, you go back, at the founding of the colonies in the United States, they wouldn't even let lawyers. If somebody said they were a lawyer, they'd run them out of town. Hit the road, right? We just left that crap. That's why we came here. And in come the lawyers again. And they have got big time hold of us, and we got to shake them loose somehow. Simple as that. So anyways, here's, oh no, I already put that in there, I think. Did I? No, I didn't. Anyways, this is the girl, Cobra Dove, and she does, I think, a pretty good job of explaining between her videos and the woe unto your lawyers, either the PDF or the guy reading it. I think these two things combined will give you a pretty good overall view of possibly what's actually important, and then we can go from there. So, anyways, let me see what we got here. I don't see. I was really hoping to see. Where is this? I was hoping that Alex would be around. He talked about calling in today, and I was really hoping that would happen, but I don't see him online. So I'll have to smack him when I see him next time. But anyways, if someone has something that they wish to discuss, give me a shout at, what's the phone number here? 718-717-8296 and 718-717-8296. You got something on your mind you want to talk about, give me a call. If not, we'll just carry on. Now, I talked last night too about this other document that Kathy Hamilton found. And Kathy, if you're online and you want to discuss some of this stuff, I would greatly appreciate a call, because you have spent a very large amount of time digging this particular document out. And I'll put this in the chat too for anybody that wasn't in here last night. This is a very, very important document. It goes back pre 92, and people need to understand this stuff. They really have to understand. You got to go back and you got to read the background documents to really understand what you're facing today. And there's so much time passed since this document came out that what we were researching years and years and years ago, out of documents like this, is all implemented now. They managed to keep this stuff in the background and keep you voting and protesting and all this kind of nonsense. while they're working away quietly in the background with their lawyers and their bankers and so on and so forth on how they're going to screw you over for the final big screw over, if you will. Then they have it all laid out. So I think maybe I've read a lot of this stuff in the past, and let me see what we got here. Is this it? Yeah. So this is an absolutely brilliant document, because the National Roundtable Series on Sustainable Development, and all the members in that. I read that last time. I'm going to read that again. See what we can find out here. It's The Meaning of Sustainable Development, which I read last night, is from 1915. 1915, right? And this is when the ecology movement was already well underway. Okay, because the ecology movement, I've read in several books that they killed God in the mid 19th century. It was the mid 1800s. That's the same time as they brought evolution in, and went from the creator to you're an offspring of a monkey now, or an ape, to turn us into animals. We're nothing more than an animal, and they intend to treat us no more better than an animal, and that's showing more every day. And they said that the ecology could not move forward as long as God existed. So their job, they just arbitrarily killed God in the mid-19th century during the Darwinism years and that. And that's when they brought that into the public school systems and whatnot. So, you say 1915, well, geez, that's a long time ago. Well, yeah, but then, we had World War I, and we had the attempt at the League of Nations, the attempt at the State of Israel. Both of those things failed in World War I. And then that's when the public school system really got ramped up after World War I, the indoctrination process. And, that's getting ready for World War II after the second Big Depression. And then the second shot at it, they did manage to get the United Nations, which is just a rebranding name of the League of Nations, and the State of Israel. And they've been running forward ever since. And it's all about ecology, right? That is their trigger. And, Malthus and that, and those guys, they all said that, there's too many people on the planet. We don't have the resources. There's just too many people. So the ecology movement, like deep ecology, really is about, it's not about the trees, and it's not about the water. It's about depopulation. And this plan has been in business a long, long time. So, they just keep regrouping and coming at us. But let's see what we got here. They give us urban sprawl, and then they told us it was bad. They give us the automobile and then told us it was bad. You get all this stuff? They did all of these things in order to set it up so that they could come back at us and say, oh my God, look at the mess you've made of the planet. Well, you didn't mess nothing up. Okay, you're just tooling along here. Let's see where we go. Excuse me. Yeah, I did this last night. This is the Global Trust. This is what George Hunt was trying to get through to people way back when he first discovered it. And that was, I think, 87 or somewhere in there. And the connections between the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Morris Strong, and the EPA and all of this kind of stuff. And these guys are not environmentalists at all. Okay? They want world government, but they're using environment to get it. These people, they're not environmentalists. They're internationalists. They're globalists. They believe in capitalism for them and their friends, and socialism for everyone else. In other words, they will be the controllers of the global trust, and they will arbitrarily decide what is adequate for you of the resources that they put in the global trust. And we get there, you're going to see a lot of people dying really fast, and you're going to see people, fighting with each other. And it won't be, it'll be because, they say, well, climate change will cause, angst and anger and fights and, all this kind of stuff. Well, yeah, it will actually, but it won't be caused by climate change. It'll be the restriction of your use of your natural resources. Okay? They're going to starve you on your hydro, starve you on your water, starve you on your food, and then say, well, we can't give you any more because, well, there's too many people on the planet. So when we divvy it all up, there's not enough for everybody. So, that's the game. Let's see. So, limits to growth we have in here. I'm just going to go down a little bit and see if I can. Let me see. Okay. Let me see what we got here. The mandate of the Brundtland Commission, okay, as it has become known, was threefold. And this was 1987. To re-examine the critical issues of environment and develop and to formulate innovative, concrete, realistic action proposals to deal with them. That's one. Two, to strengthen international cooperation on the environment and development and to assess and propose new forms of cooperation that can break out of existing patterns and influence policies and events in the direction of the needed change. And to raise the level of understanding and commitment to action on the part of individuals, voluntary organizations, businesses, institutes, and governments. For the next few years, the Commission studied the issues and listened to people at public hearings on 5 continents, gathering over 10,000 pages of transcripts and written submissions from hundreds of organizations and individuals. In 1987, the Commission released its report on Our Common Future. At the core of this report is the principle of sustainable development. The Commission's embrace of sustainable development as an underlying principle gave political credibility to a concept many others had worked on over the previous decade. The Commission defines sustainable development as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This simple, vague definition has been criticized by some and hailed by others. But this is just a takeoff, basically, without the idea of the trust from this is a knockoff of the 1915 meaning of sustainable development. Unfortunately, many people mistakenly use the term sustainable development to mean either environmental protection or else sustained economic growth, presumably to pay for, among other things, environmental protection. Even the Brundtland Commission accepted the need for a 5 to 10-fold increase in world industrial output as essential for sustainable development. Now here's an interesting thing, sustainable confusion. The term sustainable development has been criticized as ambiguous and open to a wide range of interpretations, many of which are contradictory. The confusion has been caused because sustainable development, sustainable growth, and sustainable use have been used interchangeably as if their meaning were the same. They are not. Sustainable growth is a contradiction in terms. Nothing physical can grow indefinitely. Sustainable use is applicable only to renewable resources. It means using them at rates within our own capacity for renewal. So, this is the same thing they did with legal and law. Okay, the confusion has been caused because of the ambiguity of these things, and that they have been used interchangeably as if they were meanings were the same. Okay, and that's when I was talking to the Law Society, and I said, your statement makes no sense whatsoever. It is illegal to practice law without a license. That makes no freaking sense. Being legal and law are two totally separate animals. They're not interchangeable. And if you're going to make a true statement, just say it's unlawful to practice law without a license, and maybe you're getting closer, and maybe not. Environmental protection is like foam padding. It offers some protections from a fall. We congratulate ourselves if we double our spending to double the thickness of the foam because we assume thicker foams mean more protection. However, we only get more protection if we fall the same distance. Meanwhile, unsustainable development constantly increases the distance we're likely to fall. Sustainable development must therefore be more than merely protecting the environment. It requires economic and social change to reduce the need for environmental protection, okay? Which is basically moving you off the environment. Like other political objectives of its kind, example, democracy, we all agree that the need for sustainable development and disagree over what it entails. Nevertheless, sustainable development has a core meaning which remains, however it is interpreted. There are three elements to this. See Jacobs, 1991. Environmental considerations must be entrenched in economic policy making. Environmental and economic objectives must be placed within a common framework in which a variety of parallel objectives can be what? Recognized. In particular, we must learn to live on the interests. Okay, there we go again. In particular, we must learn to live on the interest generated by the remaining stocks of living natural capital. Okay? There it is. Right there. That's the global trust. And that's what George Hunt was talking about. I wish he was still alive. He did some just incredible work. He took a lot of shit from people, calling him a tinfoil hat and that. He was out of the gates pretty early. And, he was long before, the advent of a usable computer. He was at this. And like so many people, he lost his family and everything else, but he was a very devout man, and he understood right from wrong, and he did everything in his power to try and get people alerted to what the hell was going on. But this is exactly what I love seeing this in here, because this is exactly what it's saying. When I went through all of this stuff, and you understand it was the tax-exempt trust, basically, that really got this going. And because they used the interest from those trusts to schmooze and to get the universities to run their programs for them and that, right? So it's the same thing. These guys get it. And like we have the tax-exempt trusts, and it's funny that the United Nations does not pay tax. So the United Nations is basically, from what I can understand, set up as a tax-exempt foundation. Which makes sense, because the guys that set up the United Nations were the guys who run the tax-exempt foundations. So if you do work for the United Nations, don't send them, when you send your bill, don't add the tax to it, because the United Nations does not pay the tax. And that's a fact. In particular, we must learn to live on the interest. All natural resources, the air, the water, the food, the fish, the animals, everything is being put into that trust. And that's where you get everybody screaming about, oh boy, we're going to get a guaranteed basic income. It's the interest from the trust that they're talking about. And that's the adequate from the United Nations Human Rights Guaranteed, whatever the hell it is. So this is very, very important. I got a caller here. Hopefully it's Alex, but we'll see who we got. I'm not racist. I will talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Hello.
Hello. Who have I got?
Hi, Ron. It's Alex.
Way to go, Alex. How you keeping?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. I'm just trying to finish up some cleaning around here. Remembered I told you I'd call in, so...
Yeah, you did. That's good.
I think, you mentioned earlier there's some stuff you wanted to discuss, or...
Well, yeah, I mean, we were discussing some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just I put it in the chat here, and it's called "Woe Unto Your Lawyers," and it just reminded me of you when I read it yesterday, last night, and that is that this Fred Riddell from 1939, who was curious about law or the legal system, ended up going through law school, and when he came out the other side, he decided that he would not be a lawyer because of what he learned about the legal system and the lawyers. It kind of reminded me of you going through, taking the journalism courses and that, and coming out the other end, and what you found while you were in there, you decided, so you don't do that.
No, I don't. I don't want to sell my soul. That's not for me.
No. So,
what was the name of that book that you were reading? Because I heard you talking about that earlier, and it really intrigued me.
It's called. If you just put in "Woe Unto You Lawyers" by Fred Rodell, Rodell, professor of law, Yale University, 1939. You'll pull it up. This is pretty amazing stuff. I mean, he lays it on the line. Right?
Yeah, it was beautiful, some of the stuff you're reading.
Yeah, it's just and I've been bitching about this for a long time with people that legal is not law, and it's a fraud. And this guy who's a professor of law, teaching law, says exactly the same thing. It's all a big fraud, and get over it, people, and quit being afraid of these guys, And you can't do anything. Everything you do is got a lawyer attached to it. So you have to see your lawyer. Why do I got to see a lawyer? Just what are we doing? Oh, you need to see a lawyer. Why do I need to see a lawyer? Well, because we're a lawyer and we only deal with lawyers.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know what you. I don't know if you have an opinion on him or not, but I used to watch Jesse Ventura's show. He had for a while. He's all right, I guess, the conspiracy theory thing, right?
Yeah, I didn't.
And he talked about when he was governor of, was it Minnesota, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
He proposed that, was it every second year you couldn't enact any new legislation, you could only repeal. But he couldn't really get that. I know, this is what he says. But he couldn't really get that enacted in any way. But that's what he wanted to do, because he harps on the fact that there's just way, way, way too many laws. Period. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the legislature is to write law. Right?
Yeah.
So you're not running nothing. You're just in there writing laws. So every single time the legislature sits, you're going to get more laws shoved at you. Now, you take that over 150, 200 years. What's on these books?
Oh, it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of laws, right?
Yeah.
So I really liked that idea when he brought that up, although, like you said, they're really just designed to create legislation. So how that would be implemented seems to be...
Well, it wouldn't, because unless you get rid of the lawyers. But my attitude, is that lawyers should never be able to hold office, because they've been legislated to have the like the bar has been legislated to have exclusive right in law, right, of law. and then they get elected, and then the legislators write what law? Whoa, wait a minute, something real wrong with this picture. So yeah. We got to have big changes, right?
So I think that was perhaps naive what he was proposing, but still it sounded like a good idea to me. Although I don't know how they put it into practice.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Ventura was a politician, and I couldn't trust a politician as far as a Kachuk one.
Yeah,
so, you know, like they talk out both sides of their mouths, and the guy, what was he? What the hell was he? A wrestler or something? What was Jesse Ventura? Wasn't he a wrestler or something?
Oh yeah, he was supposedly he was a Navy SEAL, and he was a professional wrestler for a while.
Yeah. So
I think it was just under his own name too, but yeah.
Yeah. So he he's an actor, right?
Yeah.
And so
right.
We got Schwarzenegger actor, Reagan actor, right? What we should have done was the Three Stooges is who should have been running states in that. That would have been a lot.
Might have had a better outcome.
I think so. I really think so. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be able to smile and lie when you're a politician, and maybe what Ventura was talking about. Yeah, I mean, repealing laws. Yeah, get rid of everything we don't need, and would make sense.
Pretty much everything.
But then again, he's he's on Alex Jones a lot, and he's run his conspiracy theory show on TV. And what was the point of this repeal? Right? Was it to see if they could oust out some of these constitutionalists and militia people and who were really attracted to Jesse Ventura, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, the idea is good, but what was the trigger behind it? Who knows? I'm going to beat up on it.
Yeah, and how would it be implemented? Doesn't really seem that plausible. But yeah,
no,
I'm not under the current system. But yeah,
no. So I mean, we were talking about the importance of getting people to be able to understand, what they're reading, and I like what you brought up there. Is just a
media analysis. Yeah.
Just you could pretty much take any article and dump it into a newspaper, and then explain what it actually means to people and how to read the thing.
Yeah.
Because for most people, they still can't. They don't get it. They just
no, they're not getting it.
It's wordsmithing, right?
Right.
And it's almost like the lawyer jargon, right? It while it looks like paragraphs and sentences and stuff, it's written in such a form that it gives a twisted meaning, or it leads you somewhere that is opposite to what the story's actually about. So that has to get fixed up. I mean, we all got a responsibility to our neighbors and our brothers and sisters and all the rest of this, if we're going to fix any of this stuff. If they get through, which I'm pretty sure they pretty much got it all in place now, at least here, we wouldn't be doing we wouldn't even be talking about the guaranteed basic income if we already signed on to it, which means that we've already signed off all of our natural resources here to this trust, and that they control it, and we only get whatever the interest is out of it, and
probably just yet to be rubber stamped. Right?
Yeah. And, if that goes ahead, we're in. Well, you're never in that much trouble. I mean, you always rise up and take your nation back, right?
I believe so.
I do believe so too. They say, well, what are we going to do now? It's all done. Well, we'll just undo it.
I mean, I was talking to someone the other day. Someone brought up voting to me, and I voted in until, I mean, I've made this decision now, but I voted in every single election that I've been able to. And I just can't condone it anymore. It's essentially, you're giving legitimacy to that system by going and doing that, rather than, I mean, I think the strongest statement that could be made is for no one to show up.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, right?
Because showing up is giving that system legitimacy, and it does not deserve any.
No, I'd like to see like there's 35 million people here in Canada or whatever. I'd like to see 6 people vote.
Yeah,
and then somebody gets 4 votes and goes, "We've got the majority. We've got a mandate." You know.
You know they do it too.
And they would do it. Yeah, they would. I mean, that's how ludicrous it is, right?
But it would send a message, regardless, right?
A message absolutely has to be sent. We can't continue like this. I mean, when I see the legislation that's being passed now, I mean, it's ludicrous. I still don't understand how people put their kids in the schools. I don't get that at all.
I know.
Get that.
Well, they don't understand what it is, right?
Well, they need to, but Helen called. I forget what Helen's last name is, but she called from Calgary last night.
Yeah, I heard that. You're talking about the metal detectors and all that crap.
She's got she's late 60s at least. And, she really feels bad for her kids because as a mother, and this is what happens because it's generational, right? What happens is that she grew up during the 70s and whatnot, when we were having another chaotic change of society, and got caught up in it or whatever, or this is what's going on, she sees where her kids are now, who won't be, they'll be who knows how old, in their 40s or whatever. Yeah, and sees what happened to them, right? And when she looks back and realizes what actually was going on when she was young, and didn't realize what was going on, right? And that's
how it's progressed now.
Yeah, you can look back in it and see that you got hosed, right? And everybody else, every generation after that, got hosed. And that I think we got to teach, right? I saw a video a long time ago, and it was a lady who was young, as the lead up to the Second World War with the Hitler Youth and that, right? And Germany was a basket case. Along comes Hitler, and all of a sudden jobs show up, and they have kid corps and that where they're out playing, and I think that's where actually that came from, was the organized sports, was from that era. They had all the organized sports came out of there, and the teams and the uniforms, and all of a sudden it was a new generation, and the kids were looking forward to this stuff. And the lady, she's quite old when I seen this video, and she said, her mother told her that this was bad news, right? and the kids go, "What are you talking about, Mama? We didn't have nothing before. We're all poor and everything was bad, and he come along, and now we're playing sports, and people, it's all good." And the mother
brought the circus to town.
Yeah, and the mother's going, "This is not good," right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of those rare times when a parent is telling a kid that what's going on here is not a good idea. And I think people have lost this ability to see over the generations. Otherwise, every parent should be freaking out at the school boards, but they don't seem to be.
Yeah. Doesn't seem to be much outrage at all. I mean, the last incident we really had of any outrage was the sex ed, right? And that really that died down very, very quickly, and there was no sort of resolution or anything that I can remember. I mean, people just they get angry and they'll pick it a little bit, and then they kind of forget about it and move on to the next.
Well, that's what they know how to do, right? They if you're focused on this. And they use that to, pull some data or whatever and see what they're going to do with it. And then they'll let them, little protests here. We're going to hold the kids out of school. Okay, that's all well, good. But look over here what we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like the channel got changed, right? and you've lost your interest in this because they told you to watch this now.
Oh yeah, as soon as they see something shiny.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't understand.
Completely distracted.
Yeah, they get distracted extremely quickly, and I guess because things are shoved in people's face so fast from every direction that people can't stay focused on something. They just in the old days things move slow. You could spend time discussing something for quite a period of time and try to get to the root of it.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, you put up a video on YouTube, in most cases, it's more than, the most hits you're going to get out of video on YouTube is if it's like 3-5 minutes, whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you get by that, the old flicky button clicker thing is going off on them, right? You got to get on to the next thing. So
yeah.
Their capacity to stay with the subject for any length of time is very, very short now. But
yeah, well, that whole sort of organic, debate and society actually determining its own values and what's important to it is pretty much gone out the window, right? People just they love to be dictated to today, just to be told what the issues are and what they should care about, what they shouldn't care about, right?
Yeah, I don't get that.
Neither do I. No, I understand why it's happening, but I can't condone that shit.
Like it's like that woe onto you lawyers, right? It's basically the same thing, right? He's saying that it's a lot of to do with willful ignorance and not wanting to know and the fear, right?
Yeah.
Even though they know the thing's screwed up, they would rather just turn a blind eye to it, and try.
They'd rather be handed a solution.
Yeah.
And come up with their own, or even have to discuss what it could be.
Yeah, and the idea of the paper is just. I mean, I can't get that out of my head because it's. We can talk about all these subjects forever, but
yeah,
it's like it's kind of like in-house, right?
I mean, this is an echo chamber.
Yeah, we're just having in-house conversations, right?
Yeah,
but we're still not getting at Joe Average, right? Joe Average.
Well, that's why.
Here.
That's why it's so important. Did you want to talk about that some more?
Yeah.
Actually, I was interested to know if you had anyone else contact you about the whole newspaper idea.
Well, yeah, I've had different people contact me, and some of the people in chat that I'm aware of, said they would like to edit or whatever. And again, it's almost like a fear thing, right? Like I know lots of people who are been having all kinds of trouble with the law and this kind of thing, and they haven't hurt anybody. And a lot of them are they're mad at the media, right? I mean, when Enos, they didn't print a story in the paper when the police were charged, and now that the police are not charged, it's full front page news, right? And spinning the story out like it's something Enos did wrong, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that the police are the good guys, and really Enos was way out of line doing what he did, right?
Got to play up the official narrative.
Yeah. So there's no comeback on that sort of stuff unless we have a paper that we can work with it. But a lot of those, Enos not so much, but I know some of the other guys who are connected to the idea that the internet is the answer. And I do have a lot of arguments with people. The internet is not the answer, right?
Well, it's I like what you said about it. I mean, it is. I think it is part of the answer. But what you said about it is that it's a toolbox.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right? There's a lot of good tools to be had on the internet.
Yeah.
But how do I get, say, the guy across the street from me here to become involved in what we're discussing?
Yeah.
There's only one way, and that's drop something on his doorstep.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can lead them, right? or at least offer to that man or woman that if this particular item interests you, then you can go here and get some more information. The idea is to get people involved in saying, "Oh, that's really interesting. Oh, look, I should go look at this too." But once you get their minds going there, they're going to look at the TV a hell of a lot less, and start. People, I do believe. A lot of people say people want to be stupid or uninformed. I don't want to use the word stupid, but uninformed. I don't believe that. I really don't believe that. I just don't believe that they have. They don't understand where to go or what they need to do to become informed. They're used to this.
Well, inherently, no. I don't think people are like that. No, it's been bred into us.
Yeah, and we can breed it out. We can give them an interest.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Yeah, and once they get going on it, they'll do it, right? And
I think the solutions. You're right. The solutions will occur in physical actions that we take, and that doesn't include posting stuff on the internet. That's part of it. Like you said, it's part of the toolbox, but that's not going to be an ultimate solution, I don't think.
No, I mean,
I agree with you on that.
Like this document here, woe unto you lawyers. I didn't know nothing about this till last night, right?
Yeah.
And then I was going through and listening to it, and the other girl that I ran into first, it's the same thing. It's all about law and Congress and all this kind of stuff. But she comes from a higher power law, and her use of etymology is wonderful to tie everything together. And this is the stuff that people don't. They're not privy to any of this stuff, And
yes.
So yeah. I don't know. We just got to I'm looking at a paper that's probably only. First edition or whatever, probably only like 12 pages or something, right?
I mean, I don't think it doesn't have to be anything huge.
No.
It's just got to be able to crack them open a little bit.
Yeah, and
right, like we were talking about. Yeah.
I do believe that we'll get the advertisers. I do believe that there's a market for this. I do believe that a lot of the businesses who were afraid before are not so much afraid now. They see
small businesses for sure will be interested. I doubt any corporations would want to jump on board with that, but yeah.
Yeah, and now the small businesses. I mean, we can pull those ads, right? And pay for the thing at least. But if we can put it across the country, then it can become a very viable publication.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to at least be able to cover the cost of printing and distribution, right? Like, forget even making a profit or anything. That's not important, right?
No, I mean, it's like I told them up in Sudbury there, right? I mean, you're looking at you don't need color for it's your call, but it's $700 or something, 5,000 copies. You got 10 people together, $70 a head. That's hardly a big investment to get out to people on the street.
That's right.
It's really no investment at all. So from there, I mean, you set up. I understand all. I mean, we can set up the phone lines, right? I mean, I could hire salespeople across the country so fast make your head spin because we just run them off Skype, right? And we're going to put out a magazine. We're going to put out a newspaper here. Go get some ads, right? Simple as that. There's your commission structure. Go get the ads, right?
Yeah.
And set up a network like that. So that's the beauty of the internet and the digital system, right? It's fast. This is a whole lot different than when I worked at the magazine in Calgary with typewriters and film and it was nothing like it is today, right? So we do have that toolbox that is very, very workable. So we just got to get off our butts and get her going. and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what we need to do is decide really. I think what we really need. I think probably the main thing that we need to decide on is the. I don't want to call it the genre, but the level of what's the word I'm looking for?
Intensity?
You can't just be, you can't pull an Alex Jones, right?
The soft sell thing is extremely important, like you've discussed before. If you can't be scaring people away.
No, you want to.
Much as what you're saying might be true, right? You have to frame it in a way that people can absorb without it, completely freaking them out.
So, to write in a way that would get people to contemplate what they're actually reading. I think.
Yes.
Right? To encourage them that like take the sex ed in the schools, right, and just sit down and quietly discuss some of it, right, and try to get people to say, this isn't right. Why are they doing this, right? And to give them opportunity to go off of the mainstream media. And find out what's actually behind it, right? I just can't see it not working. I just can't see it not working, and
it will have an impact for sure. It will definitely have an impact.
We got to get away from, like, when we went to Guelph to the milk symposium down there that they put on with TVO there and everything.
Yeah.
And we had the panel, and we're at the university, and the panel are basically, for the most part, we have the government people calling it a toxic substance and that. But when I'm even looking there, and it was a full house really. It was in one of those one of those circular rooms or whatever, like a theater, a really good crowd. But when I looked at the crowd, I thought, this is still all in-house, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are all people that are vested in this. We're not getting to Joe Average out there, right? We're having these contained discussions, and we got to get away from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was like I was telling you about. I've been covering the issue of fluoride and water fluoridation in the region of Peel. They had what they called an education session where they brought in supposed experts and had them basically educate, quote unquote, the regional councillors on the cost, benefit, risks, what have you of water fluoridation. But the meeting was closed to the public. Nothing was released, not even a transcript. There's no audio, no video, nothing. No one knows what was said in that.
Yeah.
Right? So it's more than likely the majority of people there are just a bunch of sycophants for the official narrative. Right? And they just they don't even want the people who are affected by these policies involved in it at all.
No, it's all in-house.
Yeah, exactly. It's another perfect example of that.
Yeah, and the average person has no clue what's going on.
That's right.
And I do believe that we have an obligation to those that don't know to at least give them something that they could think about it, and hopefully lead them to go and look things up as well. I mean, we can lead them to. I mean, it's easy now because you can put a story about fluoride and throw a bunch of pertinent links in there, both sides, right, or whatever, and just to get people discussing the matter, because without the discussion, there's nothing going on. If there's no discussion between the folks that live beside each other, then it's it's just that narrative coming off the TV or the regular newspapers at them constantly, and we have to offer them something different.
Yeah,
we don't have to, but I think we need to. You're 29, right? So you got a long ways to go, right? And I mean, you look down the line here in 20, 30 years and knowing what they want to implement. Is this what you want to live in? You know?
No. That's why we're talking right now.
You know, so, you know, it's Winston in his box, right? With the screen telling him, Alex,
with the rat in the helmet,
So, and I think we can have a lot of fun at it too. You know, it has to be.
Yes, and I think that has to be as important to that kind of a tone as the content, because that's what's going to keep people reading it and not running away.
Yeah, you can't bring the fear thing in there.
No, absolutely no fear porn whatsoever. No, right? Like that has to be.
And I see
completely.
I see publications that have tried, and I see that their biggest downfall is the fear porn.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you have to be caring about your audience and your readership and providing solutions to them and tools for them to do this sort of critical thinking, not just presenting interesting or conspiratorial or whatever you want to call it, these sorts of ideas to people and then just moving on to the next issue. You know, like if you're not showing any that you feel any responsibility for educating people or making things better or providing any solutions, then what the hell are you doing? You're obviously just in it for the wrong reasons, right? We were talking about how you called Alex Jones' show asking about this, right?
Yeah.
He's been in the game for how long, and what solutions has he presented? Really, nothing.
Nothing I've seen so far. You know, you run it out almost the same. You know, if you go to the Rockefeller Foundation and some of these other foundations, they don't tell you. It's that lingo they use. They don't tell you what they don't give you a specific, right? What they do is they run scenarios. You know, the what if, and then they'll run out 3 or 4 different scenarios that
all these hypotheticals,
hypothetical solutions, right? Now they already know which ones they want, right? But they play this out so that people believe they're engaged in this situation, right?
They believe there's a debate,
But we do the same thing, you know. What if we run our hydro system different? What if we change the way we run our health policies, right? To give them positive input so they can, you know, have positive feedback kind of thing, right?
Sure.
We got to be the teachers, right?
Yeah. I'd be really interested to get some other people calling in.
Yeah.
And actually having a discussion about implementing this, and not just, you know, we've been talking about it for a bit now.
I mean, it's a go time, and let's go. So we'll hook up some people on Skype or something. We'll have some Skype conversations or something. And,
we have to get moving on that.
Yes, we do, and yes, we shall. And in about 30 seconds or less, I think I'm going to hear music, maybe.
Okay, well, you want to wrap things up?
Yeah, so I want to thank you as always, and I hope people take a look at those links that I put in there today, because there's some really, really phenomenal information in there. And let's see, this is Sunday, and it's going to be bright out tonight till, 7:45 or something? That's fantastic. And we'll be back here on Tuesday night from 7 till 8. So, again, I want to thank UCY.TV, which I do consider the best little network on the internet, and all those people that converse and sometimes argue in the chat, and I do hear the music.
Thanks, Ron.
Say adieu. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Have a good one. We'll get this hooked up real quick. All right, everybody, take care. We are out.
Social slime, they don't matter, genocide, sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care, Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only for they bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn.